Hello everyone and welcome back to the Great Book of Grudges. My name is Nathan and we're back with another Total War Warhammer video. It's about time that we started showing off all the new stuff coming in the DLC and of course the accompanying patches. As I had mentioned yesterday, there are going to be a lot of videos dropping, with a new video dropping an hour after each one. Today we're going to focus on the FLC and of course any patches coming into effect. And it only makes sense that we start off with the Beastmen, as a massive amount of changes have come to their gameplay. It's almost like they've been completely redone from the ground up. We'll be focusing around the 3 legendary lords that have already been released, Khazrak, Malagor and Morga, and all the changes coming to the Beastmen as a whole, so let's not waste any more time and jump right in. You'll already see some noticeable changes as soon as you begin a new campaign, but let's not overwhelm ourselves. First, take notice of your income. As you'll notice, for the first time in a long time, it won't be at a negative. Beastmen players can now rejoice for a number of reasons, so let's check those out. A massive change to the Beastmen is that they will no longer cost any income whatsoever. Upkeep for the Beastmen are a thing of the past. As we all know in lore, they don't really have any sort of currency. You will still have to build up your treasury, but for other things. So now, no units will cost any upkeep, and you will also notice that recruiting units does not cost any sort of income. Yep, your units are now free, though you will have noticed here that some units are indeed locked by some unit cap. Don't worry about this, we will be covering it in a very short time now. Beastmen Horde infrastructure has been radically changed. As you'll see here, now you'll only spend growth when it comes to building up your main settlement camp. Every other building instead will only cost you your own income, which of course you'll get through the traditional means: battles, raiding, and of course destroying enemy settlements. You'll also notice that the amount of Beastmen possible buildings has been reduced, which means that you can have all Beastmen buildings within every one of your hordes, meaning that now you can freely explore different army loadouts without being forced into a certain meta. You'll also be able to construct a number of support buildings, which will give you not only different buffs to your campaign, but also make your herds far more terrifying in the battlefield. I can say now that after playing with the Beastmen for a few hours after the patch was handed to me, that the Beastmen buildings themselves are all useful, meaning that you will have incentive to build them all, and you won't feel as you're wasting away any sort of income that you might have, as of course the Beastmen do have it very limited at the very beginning. The Darkmoon event for the Beastmen also makes its return, but thankfully Creative Assembly have removed all the negatives. This means that you're only getting positive buffs from this event from now on. Of course, some balancing has come into effect, but other than that, everything is now focused around Beastmen getting stronger and stronger. This makes sense lore-wise, as the Darkmoon is a symbol for their religion. Let's talk about the new Beastmen specific currency, Dread. That is the red symbol on screen. Dread is the currency used to invoke the Dark Gods to strengthen your tribe via the Rewards of Dread panel. We'll be checking that out very soon. It is acquired by completing missions, raising settlements and winning battles. With more Dread received, the more enemy casualties inflicted. Dread can be spent on expanding unit and hero capacities, recruiting legendary lords and other upgrades. This is more or less your main new form of currency, and it fits with the theme of the Beastmen incredibly well. If you want more Dread, you get into more fights. It fits with Beastmen lore tremendously well. As I said, your Dread currency will be used in the Rewards of Dread tab, and you can see 4 different sections. The first one is obviously dedicated to unit caps. As you can see here, spend some Dread and get extra unit caps. You will also notice there is another icon there. The higher tier units are not only locked behind Dread, but also through a certain portion of your campaign progress. But don't you worry, it doesn't actually take long to be able to get this. It's more to make sure that you don't steamroll too early. Hero capacity can also be increased through the same way. As long as you have the resource, then you'll be able to keep recruiting them. Now, you can also recruit your other legendary lords through this too. This is a new system purely for the Beastmen. If you have all the Dread required, and of course any accompanying content, so say for example you need the Silence and the Fury to be able to get Taurox, then you can use this system. You'll be able to confederate them or just recruit them into your pool. It really depends if the faction is active or not. But this is a new system for the Beastmen Hordes, as of course, every Beastmen Legendary Lord now has a dedicated faction. There's a new upgrade system for the Beastmen which has a lot of different functions. First up, we've got the ability to erect Herdstones at a certain level. Don't worry, we'll be covering Herdstones soon enough. But as you can see, there's a bunch of different buffs that you can purchase which will help you out in your campaign. Two separate branches exist here, the first one focusing around your horde itself, being able to recruit them at a higher level, also come with more buildings, and make them a bit more powerful as soon as you start off a new army. Quick note here, of course, you can't freely recruit armies as much as you wish, but you can increase your total army capacity with Dread. This is a new upgrade which permanently increases the levels of newly recruited lords and heroes, which means once you unlock this upgrade, you can then recruit a lord at level 5, level 10 or level 15. This is going to make it much easier when you start building up new armies. Finally, the items tab, and as you can see here, some of them will range in terms of cost, but all of them are actually fairly useful, and as you go further down the line, you'll see some very powerful items. There are some which will focus around making lords and heroes even stronger, but there's one which I quite like myself, the Banner of Madness, which gives a passive ability called the Banner of Madness. Attribute causes fear, attribute causes terror, and physical resistance plus 10%. You can see why it's got such a high cost margin. The Beastmen research tree, Challengers of the Dark Gods, has also received massive changes. While it might look like it's a generic research tree, in fact there are a few stipulations towards it. It's very thematic now, as to unlock specific branches and individual texts in the lower part, you will actually need to do certain things. For example, winning 5 battles, performing certain rituals, or even creating Herdstones. The idea is to make your tech focused around that of your campaign. And because of that, the certain bonuses that you can acquire through your research is actually quite powerful, and it doesn't take a lot of turns to sort out. I've been playing the Beastmen for a certain amount of hours by this point, and I can say that you will actually start unlocking these fairly quickly if you set yourself some goals. There's a lot more structure to the Beastmen campaigns now. And now for something really new. Many people have always requested Herdstones for the Beastmen as their own separate settlements. Well, now you're going to be able to raise a Herdstone, and we're going to have a lot of detail revolving around that. Herdstones are not new unique areas, but in fact play into the campaign very fluently and very differently. Other than that, you get the usual stuff. Raise and Advance will allow you to get some replenishment sorted and also allow you to move your units for a little bit, and Loot and Raise is very much the same. And I know that you're probably worried seeing an icon there which is very infamous with the Beastmen, but don't worry about that, we're going to cover that soon. You'll be able to build Herdstones at any settlement that you take over. As you'll also have noticed, the purple icon on the top toolbar is your Herdstone shards, meaning that your Herdstones will be rather limited. As you build up a Herdstone, you'll then need to do a few things to be able to then build another one. At the beginning, you'll only be able to have one certain Herdstone active at a time. However, this will then improve as time goes on, and you can have multiple Herdstones. Herdstones themselves will act as settlements in a way, but very different. Your main building is where you will recruit all your units. As you improve its levels, you'll be able to unlock more and more units through all your tiers. Now, there are also 4 separate buildings which count from the support section. These will instead improve your garrison, but also give you buffs to your armies around the region. You actually will need to defend these Herdstones for a specific reason, and it's going to make sure that your armies are ready to deal with any enemies, especially when you get to higher tier difficulties where you're going to be dealing with a lot of player bias. Now, the territories that you've just conquered and a few adjoining territories have now become what is known as a blood ground. As you can see, some of these areas have certain numbers on them, and that's as much as they're worth in terms of a special currency linked directly to the Herdstone. By destroying these locations, you'll be able to get this special currency. And also, as you fight within the regions of the blood ground, you'll also earn these points too. This system was implemented so you'll be able to keep on fighting whilst protecting the Herdstone, as many other factions around the area will take notice of it. All of said points from destroying those settlements and fighting within the Bloodgrounds will then link towards the big bar on your top screen, which we've been avoiding so far, as of course this is how everything works out for your campaign. Now, as you perform these rituals, those points again will focus to that. Those points will then work to different sections. As you can see, there's a bunch of different icons. So for example, you start off with 0 to 24. That allows you to recruit additional types of units such as Gores, Harpies, Manticores, and so on. Now, when you move on to 25, which means that you'll have to gain 25 points, you'll move on to the next section. It's very similar to that of the Eye of the Vortex campaign, but instead of gaining these points per turn, you gain them from the ritual themselves and as much fighting as you do throughout these rituals. There are various different bonuses here, as you'll also be able to get increased army capacity, extra Herdstone shards so you can have multiple Herdstones at once, and different other buffs. You'll need a minimum of at least 10 ritual points before you can actually perform your ritual. However, take advantage of this. Kill as many enemies in the region as you can, as this will greatly benefit you later in the campaign. It won't take long to get into many fights here, and you can use your Herdstone as an extra army, as of course their garrison will be fairly decent. Completing the ritual will then pass the points onto your progress bar, as you can see here, but that's not all of it. This is where some interesting mechanics come to play. You will still keep the Herdstone, and you can keep that as a defensive base, but all adjoining areas which form part of the Bloodground cannot be resettled until the Herdstone is destroyed, which gives you incentive for A, defending the Herdstone of course, and B, now you won't have to worry about destroying areas, and then of course having some Skaven, human, elf faction or whatever taking it over again, making your campaign feel like you've really not progressed. Something I'm very excited to say is that Bestial Rage has finally been reworked. No longer does it spawn one of those silly NPC armies that, well, let's be honest, gets you into more problems than it's worth. Instead, higher Bestial Rage will improve your horde growth, so it makes you more incentivized to go in and do some damage. Don't worry, however, if you've got a few armies which are in locations that might not see a lot of fighting, but you still want to level them up via growth, then you're fine to just stick them onto raid stance. Khazrak's unique faction is known as the Warherd of the One Eye, and its faction effect, the Scourge of the Drakwold, has the following effects. Dread cost minus 15% for all unit capacity upgrades. Evasion chance when using the beast paths plus 15% for all characters, and ambush success chance plus 15% for all armies. Khazrak's very own trait, known as One Eye, now offers the following effects. Reduced Bestial Rage penalties and detection chance when in hidden encampment stance. Attribute Vanguard deployment for Bestigor units in his army. Attribute Vanguard deployment for Razorgore chariots in his army. And finally, enables poison attacks for all Ongor units in his army. Morgur's faction is known as the Warherd of the Shadowgave, and his own faction effect, Shadowgave, offers the following effects. Unit capacity plus 4 for Chaos Spawn. Casualty replenishment plus 8% for all armies. Chaos Corruption plus 3 for all characters, and Horde building construction cost minus 15% for all armies. His personal trait is also known as Shadowgave, and has the following benefits. Raiding Stance is upgraded to Despoiler Raiding Stance, which spreads Chaos Corruption and Attrition. Passive ability, Aura of Vile Transmutation. Magic resistance 20% for the whole army. Immune to Athaloran and Awakened Forest attrition for the Lord's army. Morgur will always remain wounded for no more than 1 turn, and finally Chaos Corruption plus 5. Malagor's faction, Harbinger of Disaster, also has a unique faction trait known as the Path of the Crowfather. The bonuses are as follows. Dread cost minus 50% for all hero capacity upgrades. Campaign movement range plus 10%, and hero recruit rank plus 5 for Bray Shamans and Great Bray Shamans. Great Bray Shamans are a new FLC lord that you guys will be receiving, and they shall be shown off in a video soon enough. Malagor of course has his own unique trait known as Crowfather, which offers the following benefits. Movement range plus 50% when using the beast paths for the Lord's army. Enemy leadership minus 8 for local enemy armies. enemy casualty replenishment rate minus 100% for local enemy armies, and attribute causes fear for harpy units in the Lord's army. Oh, did I mention that Malagor can fly? Because he can totally fly now. Something that's been very much requested since day one of the Beastmen launch way back in Warhammer 1 has finally been addressed. And he looks cool while doing it, so yeah, cool factor, flying, why not? Of course, the legendary lords now have their own unique skill lines. Malagor focuses mostly around magic and doing some leadership damage to your enemies. Not only that, but at the end of the skill line he has Mantle of Crows, which is a constant area effect damage dealing ability. Now the thing is, you do need to keep Malagor in constant melee combat for this. However, it's not too bad of a thing, as by the time that you unlock this, you will be geared out to be able to do some damage and have some big monsters protecting him. Morga's new skill line truly embraces his lore into the game, where he'll focus around being able to cause more attrition, chaos corruption, and be able to buff up other monsters to make them as disgustingly corruptive as he is. This is mostly through the form of powerful blessed auxiliaries which are only available to him so he can modify his units. And finally, Khazrak will focus around a skirmishing type of combat, being able to focus on buffs during ambush battles, buffing up Gors, Ungors, and Bestigors, and not only that, but causing terror against men. All of the lords now have their own unique playstyle, and there's a lot more to show when we start looking at Taurox in a few days time. But until then, what do you think about the changes coming to the Beastmen faction? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below, and let's start a bit of a discussion. But with that, my friends, we've come to the end of our video. Thank you so much for watching. If you did enjoy the video, might I suggest giving the video a like, or even subscribing to the channel, as it really does help us out. In the description section below are various links to different social media platforms such as Facebook, Instagram, and Discord. Also in the description section is an affiliate link with Element Games where you could buy loads of hobby-based products, not just Warhammer, for 10 to 25% off. Making a purchase using that link and also our special code, which is also in the description, supports the channel at no extra cost to you, which we think is rather cool. A big thank you to our patrons. Your support means the world to us. It's amazing that people want to help a small channel like us grow and get to a higher level of content. A big thank you to Gibraltar LUSC, Ryan Bertsche, Andrew Prince, and Okro for subscribing to us at our Fane level. You guys are super cool. And a big thank you to Edward Yule, VS Vasan, Aaron Whitman, and Shaggy for subscribing to us at our King level. Honestly, we can't thank you all enough. And lastly, a big thank you to all of you for liking, sharing, and commenting on these videos. Honestly, it's because of you guys that the channel's been growing at such a great pace lately, so we can't thank you all enough. But with that, my friends, thank you so much for watching once again, and we shall see you all again very, very soon. Have a good day.